Elena smoothed her dress with trembling hands as she stared at the invitation, her ex-husband's baby shower, sent with a handwritten note. Thought you'd want to see what a real family looks like. What he didn't know was that she wouldn't be arriving alone. The morning sun filtered through Elena's apartment windows as she sat at her kitchen table, staring at the cream-colored invitation that had arrived 3 days ago. Her fingers traced the elegant script announcing a baby shower for baby Morrison, her ex-husband Richard's surname, the one she'd gladly shed 2 years ago. The handwritten note paper-clipped to the invitation made her stomach churn. Elena, thought you'd want to see what a real family looks like. Maybe you can finally understand what you could never give me. Ah. She set down her coffee cup with shaking hands. Even now, Richard's cruelty could slice through her carefully rebuilt confidence like a blade. The divorce had been brutal enough. His constant blame, the whispered conversations about her failure as a woman, the way he'd made her infertility feel like a personal betrayal against him. Mama Elena, are you sad? 4-year-old Sophia's voice broke through her thoughts. Elena looked up to see all 4 children standing in the doorway. Sophia with her wild curls, Marcus with his serious eyes, little Anna clutching her stuffed rabbit, and baby Leo tottering on unsteady legs. Her heart swelled. 6 months ago, she never could have imagined this moment. 4 siblings, abandoned by drug-addicted parents, had been placed in her care through the emergency foster system. What was supposed to be temporary had become the family she'd always dreamed of. I'm not sad, sweetheart, Elena said, gathering Sophia onto her lap. I'm just thinking. About the mean man? Marcus asked. At 6, he was too perceptive, already protective of the woman who'd become their safe harbor. Elena had never called Richard mean in front of them, but children absorbed more than adults realized. Sometimes grown-ups say hurtful things when they're not happy inside themselves. Meanwhile, across town, David Chen pushed his shopping cart through the grocery store aisles, his 8-year-old daughter Lily chattering beside him about her upcoming science project. Since his wife Sarah's death 3 years ago, these weekend errands had become their special time together. Dad, can we get those fancy crackers? The ones Mom used to buy for parties? Lily asked, pointing to an expensive display. Sure, sweetheart. He smiled, though the mention of Sarah still sent a familiar ache through his chest. As a pediatric surgeon, he'd saved countless children's lives, but he'd been powerless to save the woman he'd loved most. His phone buzzed, a text from his sister Jenny. Remember, Elena Martinez starts Monday. The kids are lucky to have her as their advocate. David nodded to himself. The new child services liaison at the hospital came highly recommended. Jenny, who ran the children's unit, had mentioned Elena's remarkable story, a former teacher who'd pivoted to child advocacy after her own struggles with infertility. She'd be working closely with his department on pediatric cases involving foster children. He'd seen her file photo, a woman with kind eyes and an infectious smile. Something about her made him look forward to Monday in a way he hadn't felt about meeting someone new in years. Dad, you're smiling weird, Lily observed. Just thinking about work, bug. Is it about the new lady? Aunt Jenny says she's really nice and has foster kids. David raised an eyebrow. What else did Aunt Jenny say? Lily grinned. That you need more friends. What do you think Elena should do about Richard's cruel invitation? Share your thoughts below. Would you face your past or let sleeping dogs lie? Saturday afternoon arrived grey and drizzling, matching Elena's mood as she stood in the parking lot of the Riverside Country Club. The imposing stone building loomed before her, its manicured gardens a stark reminder of the life she'd once thought she wanted. She adjusted the rearview mirror and checked her reflection one more time. The emerald dress hugged her figure elegantly, not the broken woman Richard remembered, but someone who'd found strength in her scars. Behind her, 4 car seats held her sleeping angels, exhausted from their morning at the park. This is insane, she whispered to herself. What am I trying to prove? But she knew exactly what she was proving. That his words hadn't destroyed her. That his definition of a real family was as shallow as his character. The valet approached her modest sedan, his expression shifting from professional courtesy to barely concealed judgment as he noticed the car seats and children's belongings scattered throughout. Elena's cheeks burned, but she lifted her chin. Are you here for the Morrison celebration? Yes. Her voice came out stronger than she felt. We are. As she gently woke the children and gathered their things, her phone buzzed. A text from David Chen, whom she'd met just 3 days ago at the hospital orientation. Hope your weekend is peaceful. Looking forward to working with you Monday. David. A small smile crossed her lips. In their brief conversation about the pediatric advocacy program, she'd felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Genuine interest from someone who saw her as more than her past failures. He'd listened intently as she discussed her plans for supporting hospitalized foster children, his dark eyes focused and kind. Mama Elena, is this a castle? Sophia asked, staring up at the club's entrance. Something like that, sweetheart. Inside the country club, Richard Morrison stood at the center of attention, his hand possessively wrapped around his pregnant wife Melissa's waist. At 26, she was 8 years younger than Elena, with platinum blonde hair and the kind of effortless beauty that graced magazine covers. And the doctor says the baby's measuring perfectly, he was saying to a circle of admirers. Some women are just naturally built for motherhood, you know. The comment drew knowing glances from several guests who remembered Elena. Richard's mother, Patricia, nodded approvingly. She'd never liked Elena, considering her son's first wife a disappointment from day one. It's such a blessing when everything works the way God intended, Patricia added pointedly. Melissa shifted uncomfortably. Despite her youth, she wasn't naive to her husband's cruelty. She'd heard the stories about Elena, seen the vicious way Richard spoke about his ex-wife's defects. It made her wonder what he'd say about her if things ever went wrong. Richard, maybe we shouldn't, she began softly. Shouldn't what? Tell the truth. Richard's voice carried across the room. I wasted 5 years trying to build a family with someone who couldn't deliver. Now look, he gestured toward Melissa's rounded belly. 6 months with the right woman, and we're expecting our miracle. The room fell into uncomfortable murmurs. Even his closest friends found his bitterness unsettling. That's when the main doors opened. Elena walked in first, her head held high, emerald dress flowing like water. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Several people who remembered her from the old days couldn't hide their shock. She looked radiant, confident, nothing like the broken woman who'd left town after the divorce. But it was what followed that made the entire room gasp. Sophia entered next, her tiny hand clutched in Elena's, her wild curls bouncing as she looked around with wide eyes. Then Marcus, serious and protective, followed by little Anna with her stuffed rabbit, and finally, Elena scooped up toddling Leo in her arms. 4 children. 4 beautiful, obviously well-loved children who looked at Elena with complete trust and adoration. The silence stretched like a taut wire. Richard's face cycled through confusion, shock, and something that looked almost like rage. Melissa stared with her mouth slightly open. Patricia Morrison's champagne flute slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. Hello, Richard, Elena said calmly, her voice carrying across the silent room. Thank you for the invitation. I thought it was time you met my family. Sophia tugged on Elena's dress. Mama, why is everyone staring? The single word, Mama, spoken with such natural love and trust, hit the room like a physical blow. These weren't just children Elena cared for. They were hers in every way that mattered. Richard found his voice first, though it came out strangled. Elena, what, how? Life has a funny way of giving us exactly what we need, Elena replied, pressing a kiss to Leo's head. Just not always in the package we expect. She looked directly at Melissa then, her expression softening. Congratulations on your pregnancy. Children are the greatest blessing. The sincerity in her voice, free of bitterness or sarcasm, somehow made Richard's earlier cruelty seem even more vicious in contrast. Marcus stepped closer to Elena's side, his 6-year-old frame radiating fierce protection. Are these the people who were mean to you, Mama? The innocence of the question, the casual way he called her Mama, the obvious love and loyalty in his voice, it all combined to create a moment of perfect, devastating truth. Elena had won without saying a word. The silence that followed Marcus's question stretched unbearably. Richard's jaw worked soundlessly, his face cycling through shades of red. The 30-plus guests stood frozen, champagne glasses suspended mid-sip, as they witnessed the complete dismantling of their host's narrative. We. Richard stammered, his usual commanding presence evaporating. The children clustering around Elena weren't what he'd expected. They weren't props or a desperate attempt to prove something. They were a genuine family, and the love between them was unmistakable. Elena smiled down at Marcus, stroking his hair. These are just some people I used to know, sweetheart. Sometimes adults have complicated feelings about the past. Patricia Morrison recovered first, her voice sharp with barely contained fury. Well, this is unexpected. Though I suppose foster care is different from actually having your own children, isn't it? The cruelty in the comment hung in the air like poison. Several guests shifted uncomfortably, including Melissa, who placed a protective hand over her belly and shot her mother-in-law a disapproving look. But Elena's smile didn't waver. You're absolutely right, Patricia. It is different. I didn't have 9 months to prepare to love them. It happened the moment I saw them. 4 scared, beautiful souls who just needed someone to choose them. And they chose me back. Sophia, oblivious to the adult tensions, wandered over to the elaborately decorated gift table. Mama, look at all the pretty boxes. Is it someone's birthday? It's a party for a baby who hasn't been born yet, Elena explained gently. Like a welcome to the world party. Anna asked, clutching her rabbit tighter. Exactly like that. Richard finally found his voice, though it came out strangled and desperate. This is ridiculous. Elena, what are you trying to prove here? That you can collect strays and play house. The word strays sent a visible shudder through Marcus, and Elena's protective instincts flared. Her voice remained calm, but steel entered her tone. I'm not trying to prove anything, Richard. You invited me to see what a real family looks like. Well, now you have. Those aren't your children. Richard snapped, his composure finally cracking completely. You couldn't have children. That's why our marriage failed, because you're defective. The word hit like a slap. Several guests gasped. Melissa's face went pale, and she tugged urgently at Richard's arm. Richard, stop. Please. But he was beyond reason now, years of resentment and confusion pouring out. Do you know what I went through? 5 years of specialists and treatments and false hopes because my wife couldn't do the one thing women are supposed to do naturally. Richard, that's enough. Melissa's voice cut through his tirade. You're embarrassing yourself. Elena didn't flinch. Instead, she knelt down to Marcus's level, sensing his distress. Hey, buddy. Remember what we talked about? Sometimes people say hurtful things when they're in pain themselves. Marcus nodded solemnly. Like when I was angry at Anna for breaking my truck, but I was really mad because I missed my first mom. Exactly like that. Elena stood, Leo still in her arms, and faced Richard with quiet dignity. I'm sorry you're still carrying so much anger, Richard. I hope becoming a father brings you the peace you're looking for. Her grace in the face of his cruelty made him look even smaller. Around the room, guests who had once supported Richard's version of events began to see him differently. His own friends were looking at him with disgust. But Richard couldn't stop himself. Don't you dare take the high road with me. You ruined 5 years of my life with your medical problems and your depression and your... Daddy, stop yelling. The tiny voice came from behind them. A little girl, maybe 5 years old, had appeared in the doorway, clearly Richard's daughter from his first marriage with his college girlfriend, though Elena had never met her. The child's presence seemed to drain the remaining fight from Richard. He ran his hands through his hair, suddenly aware that his outburst had been witnessed by his own daughter. Melissa moved closer to Elena, her voice low. I'm so sorry. This isn't. I never wanted. She looked at the 4 children, then back at Elena. They're beautiful. And they obviously adore you. Thank you, Elena replied simply. Children know when they're loved. The comment wasn't accusatory, but it landed with weight. Around the room, people began to whisper among themselves, the narrative shifting with each passing moment. Patricia Morrison tried to salvage the situation. Well, I think perhaps this has gone on long enough. Elena, thank you for stopping by. But this is a private family celebration. Of course. Elena gathered her children closer. Come on, loves. Let's go get some ice cream. Can we get the kind with sprinkles? Sophia asked. All the sprinkles you want. As they moved toward the door, Richard called out desperately, Elena, wait. She paused but didn't turn around. Why did you really come here? Elena looked back over her shoulder, and for a moment, her mask slipped. Richard saw not triumph or vindication, but something infinitely sadder, pity. I came because I thought it might help me finally let go of the woman who believed your words about her worth, she said quietly. Mission accomplished. The door closed behind them with a soft click, leaving Richard standing in a room full of people who now saw him exactly as he was. The ice cream parlor buzzed with Saturday afternoon energy, but Elena felt drained as she watched her 4 children attack their Sundays with enthusiasm. The confrontation at the baby shower had taken more out of her than she'd expected. She'd thought facing Richard would provide closure, but instead, it had reopened wounds she'd believed were healed. "Mama, you're not eating your ice cream," Anna observed, her small face creased with concern. "I'm just not very hungry, sweetheart." "Are you sad because of the mean people?" Marcus asked, his protective instincts on high alert. Before Elena could respond, the parlor door chimed, and her heart sank. Richard walked in, still wearing his dress shirt from the baby shower, though his tie was loosened and his hair disheveled. Behind him, surprisingly, was his 5-year-old daughter Emma, whom Elena recognized from the confrontation. Sophia looked up from her chocolate chip sundae. "Mama, it's the yelling man." "I see him, baby." Richard approached their table hesitantly, Emma clinging to his hand. His earlier rage had been replaced by something that looked almost like desperation. "Elena, please. Can we talk?" "I don't think there's anything left to say, Richard." "There is. Please." He gestured to Emma. Emma wanted ice cream, and this was the closest place, but when I saw your car outside. He ran his free hand through his hair. "Look, I know I was out of line back there." Marcus stood up on his chair, his 6-year-old frame trying to appear intimidating. "You made Mama sad. You should go away." Emma peeked out from behind her father's leg, her eyes wide. "Are those your kids?" she asked Elena softly. "They are," Elena replied gently. "This is Sophia, Marcus, Anna, and Leo." "I always wanted brothers and sisters," Emma said wistfully. The innocent comment hit Richard like a physical blow. His daughter from his brief relationship with college girlfriend Kate had been raised primarily by her mother, seeing him only on weekends. Another relationship he damaged with his inability to commit fully. "Daddy, can I sit with them?" Emma asked. Richard looked uncomfortable, but Elena made the decision for him. "Of course, sweetheart. There's room right here next to Anna." As Emma climbed into the booth, Richard had no choice but to slide in across from Elena. The forced proximity was awkward, but somehow necessary. "Your speech back there," Richard began quietly, "about choosing them and them choosing you back. I've never heard you talk like that before." Elena spooned ice cream for Leo, who was making a cheerful mess. "I've never felt like that before. With us, everything was so focused on what I couldn't do, what was wrong with me. With them, it's about what I can give." Emma was chattering happily with Sophia about their favorite flavors, while Marcus remained watchful but less hostile with a child present. "I was angry," Richard admitted. "When I sent that invitation, when I wrote that note, I was angry at you for moving on." "Moving on from what?" "The marriage that made me feel like a failure every day." The words were quiet but cut deep. Richard flinched. "I know I wasn't. I wasn't a good husband to you," he continued. "The fertility treatments, the disappointments. I took it out on you like it was your fault." Elena looked up from helping Leo. "It wasn't anyone's fault, Richard. That's what you never understood. But seeing you today, with them." He watched as Anna offered Emma a bite of her sundae, the 2 girls giggling together. "You look happy. Really happy. And I realized I never made you look like that." The admission hung between them, heavy with years of unspoken truth. "Daddy," Emma tugged on Richard's sleeve. "Can Elena be my friend? She's really nice, and her kids are fun." Richard's face crumpled slightly. Even his 5-year-old daughter recognized something in Elena that he'd been blind to during their marriage. "I'm getting remarried in 2 months, Richard said suddenly. "Melissa, she's nothing like you. Maybe that's why I thought it would work." "Richard." "No, let me finish. She's sweet, but she's not strong like you. She doesn't challenge me or make me think. She just agrees with everything I say." He paused. "I'm scared I'm going to mess this up too." Elena felt an unexpected pang of sympathy. "Then don't. Learn from your mistakes. Be better." "How?" "I don't know how to be the kind of man who deserves a family like this." He gestured to her children, who had welcomed Emma completely into their circle. "Start by seeing people as they are, not as projections of your own fears, Elena said. I wasn't broken because I couldn't get pregnant. I was heartbroken because the man who was supposed to love me made me feel like I was. Marcus had been listening to their conversation, his young face serious. Suddenly, he climbed down from his chair and walked over to Richard. Mister, he said solemnly, Mama Elena says hurt people sometimes hurt other people. But when someone loves you, you're supposed to protect them, not hurt them more. The wisdom from a 6-year-old who had obviously known real pain and real healing left Richard speechless. Emma looked between her father and Marcus. Marcus is right. Daddy. You should say sorry to Elena. The innocence of children, their ability to cut straight to the heart of truth, filled the ice cream parlor with a heavy silence. Richard's voice came out rough. I'm sorry, Elena. For all of it. You deserved so much better than what I gave you. Elena nodded slowly. Thank you. That means more than you know. Have you ever had to forgive someone who deeply hurt you? What do you think it takes to truly let go of past pain? Share your thoughts below. The apology seemed to break something open in Richard. He sat back in the booth, watching Emma laugh with Elena's children, and his composure began to crack. You want to know the real reason I was so angry at you? He asked quietly. It wasn't just about the babies. Elena continued helping Leo with his ice cream, but she listened. My dad left when I was 7, Richard continued, his voice hollow. Just walked out one day and never came back. My mom spent years telling me it was because I wasn't good enough, that if I'd been a better son, he would have stayed. This was new territory. In 5 years of marriage, Richard had rarely mentioned his father. When we couldn't get pregnant, he continued, it felt like proof that I was still that not good enough kid. That even my own biology was rejecting me. Elena looked up, startled. Richard, the fertility issues were mine, not yours. The doctors were very clear. I know what the doctors said. His voice was bitter. But logic doesn't cure childhood wounds, does it? I spent our whole marriage waiting for you to leave me too. So I pushed you away first. The revelation hung in the air. Across the table, Emma had taught Anna how to make a tower with her spoon and napkins, their innocent laughter stark contrast to the heavy conversation. Is that why you sent me that invitation? Elena asked. To push me away one more time. I think I wanted to see if I'd finally broken you completely, Richard admitted, shame coloring his voice. Sick, isn't it? The woman I claimed to love, and I wanted to destroy her. Sophia tugged on Elena's sleeve. Mama, can we tell them about our story? Elena hesitated. The children's backstory was painful, but they'd learned to share it as part of their healing process. If you want to, sweetheart. Sophia turned to Emma with the earnestness only a 4-year-old could possess. We used to have different parents, but they were sick in their hearts and couldn't take care of us. So the nice people found Mama Elena for us. Marcus continued the story with his characteristic seriousness. We were scared at first because lots of grown-ups had promised to love us but then changed their minds. But Mama Elena keeps her promises. Emma's eyes widened. Your other parents didn't want you. They wanted the things that made them feel good more than they wanted us, Anna explained with devastating simplicity. But that's okay because now we have the right Mama. Richard stared at the children, something shifting in his expression. How long were you in the system? Marcus and Sophia were together for 2 years, Elena said softly. Anna was placed 3 times before she came to me. Leo was found abandoned at 6 months old. The reality hit Richard like a physical blow. These children had experienced more rejection and abandonment than most adults, yet they radiated love and trust. How do you do it? He asked Elena. How do you love children who aren't biologically yours like they're everything? Elena smiled, stroking Leo's hair as he dozed against her shoulder. The same way I loved you, Richard. You choose to love someone completely, or you don't love them at all. The simple statement carried the weight of an accusation. Richard had never chosen to love Elena completely. He'd loved her conditionally, based on what she could provide for him. I never chose you completely, did I? He said quietly. No. You loved the idea of me, the version of me that fit your plans. When I couldn't deliver that version, you decided I was defective. Emma had been listening to the adult conversation with the intense focus children reserve for important moments. Daddy, did you make Elena cry when you were married? The directness of the question made Richard flinch. Yes, Emma. I did. That was mean. It was very mean. Marcus studied Richard with serious eyes. Our first dad made our mom cry all the time. That's why the police had to take us away. The parallel wasn't lost on Richard. He saw himself reflected in the eyes of a 6-year-old who'd witnessed what happened when adults chose selfishness over love. I'm not that man anymore, Richard said, though his voice lacked conviction. Aren't you? Elena asked gently. What you did today at the baby shower, humiliating me in front of all those people, how is that different? Richard had no answer. The truth was uncomfortable and inescapable. Elena's phone buzzed. A text from David Chen. How was your Saturday? Hope it was peaceful. The kids in PEDS have been asking about their new advocate all week. A genuine smile crossed Elena's face as she read the message, the first real smile Richard had seen from her all day. Who's that? He asked, noticing the change in her expression. A colleague. A pediatric surgeon at Children's Hospital where I'm starting my new job Monday. He's interested in you. Elena looked up, surprised by Richard's perception. We barely know each other. Trust me, I recognize the look. And more importantly, I recognize your reaction to it. Richard's voice carried an odd mix of regret and something that might have been happiness. You like him. Elena felt heat rise in her cheeks. It's not, we're just colleagues. Elena. Richard's voice was gentler than she'd heard it in years. You deserve someone who sees what I was too stupid to see. Don't let my failures make you afraid to try again. The conversation was interrupted by Emma tugging on her father's arm. Daddy, can we invite Elena and her kids to my birthday party next month? Please. Richard looked at Elena, a question in his eyes. I think that would be lovely, Elena said, surprising them both. As they prepared to leave, Richard caught Elena's arm gently. That doctor, David. Be careful, but be open too. Some of us are capable of learning from our mistakes. For the first time since their divorce, Elena saw a glimpse of the man she'd once thought she could build a life with. Not the cruel, bitter person he'd become, but someone who might actually be capable of growth. Monday morning came crisp and clear, carrying with it the promise of new beginnings. Elena stood outside Children's Hospital, her stomach fluttering with first-day nerves as she watched her 4 little ones disappear into their new daycare with barely a backward glance. Their resilience never ceased to amaze her. They'll be fine, a warm voice said behind her. She turned to find David Chen approaching, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. He wore scrubs that somehow managed to look elegant on his tall frame, and his smile was even kinder than she remembered. How did you know I'd be the nervous wreck, not them? Elena asked, accepting the coffee gratefully. 8 years of single parenting teaches you to read the signs, David replied. Plus, Jenny mentioned you might appreciate some moral support on your first day. They walked into the hospital together, their conversation flowing as naturally as if they'd known each other for years rather than days. Elena found herself genuinely laughing for the first time since the baby shower confrontation. So 4 kids, ages 2 to 6, and you're starting a new high-pressure job. David shook his head in admiration. I can barely manage Lily's homework schedule some days. Chaos becomes normal faster than you'd think, Elena said. Though I'll admit, Saturday was challenging. Something in her tone made David pause in the hallway. Want to talk about it? Elena hesitated, then found herself telling him about the baby shower, Richard's cruelty, and the unexpected conversation that followed. David listened without judgment, his expression growing more concerned as the story unfolded. I'm sorry, he said when she finished. No one deserves that kind of public humiliation, especially not someone who's built the kind of family you have. You don't think I was crazy for going. I think you were brave. And I think your ex-husband is an idiot. The blunt assessment made Elena laugh despite herself. Tell me how you really feel. Trust me, you don't want the uncensored version. David's protective tone surprised them both. Sorry, I've seen what cruelty does to children in the hospital. Adults who hurt people who love them. He shook his head. It hits a nerve. They'd reached the pediatric wing, where Jenny Chen was waiting with a warm smile and a stack of files. Perfect timing, Jenny said, embracing Elena. We have 3 new cases I'd love your input on, and Dr. Rodriguez is eager to discuss the foster care protocol updates. As the day progressed, Elena found herself settling into the rhythm of the hospital. Her background in education and her personal experience with the foster system made her uniquely qualified to bridge the gap between medical care and emotional support for vulnerable children. During lunch, she and David found themselves eating together in the hospital cafeteria, their conversation ranging from pediatric advocacy to their children's latest adventures. "Lily's been asking about you," David admitted, picking at his sandwich. "She wants to meet the lady with 4 kids. She's welcome anytime. Fair warning though, my house sounds like a zoo most evenings. Lily would love that. She's been the only child for 3 years now, and sometimes I worry she's too serious for her age." Elena studied his profile as he spoke about his daughter. The love in his voice was unmistakable, as was the underlying sadness that seemed to shadow him whenever he mentioned his late wife. "What was she like?" Elena asked gently. "Your wife?" David's smile was soft but melancholy. "Sarah was sunshine. She could make anyone feel like the most important person in the world. Lily has her gift for seeing the best in people. She sounds wonderful." "She was. And she would have loved what you're doing, giving kids a second chance at family." He paused. "She always said love wasn't about biology, it was about choice." The comment hung between them, loaded with meaning. Their afternoon was interrupted by an emergency, a 6-year-old foster child brought in with suspicious injuries. As Elena worked with the social services team and David examined the little girl, their professional partnership revealed new depths. Elena's ability to connect with traumatized children was extraordinary. She knelt beside the hospital bed, her voice gentle and reassuring as she helped the frightened girl understand what was happening. "The doctors just want to make sure you're okay," Elena explained. "Dr. David is very gentle, and I'll stay right here with you." David watched, mesmerized, as Elena transformed a terrified child into a trusting patient with nothing more than patience and genuine care. When the girl asked if Elena had children too, and Elena showed her pictures of Sophia, Marcus, Anna, and Leo, the connection was immediate. "They look happy," the girl whispered. "They are happy. And safe. Just like you're going to be." Later, as they completed the paperwork that would ensure the child was placed in a better home, David found himself staring at Elena with undisguised admiration. "What?" she asked, noticing his gaze. "You're remarkable with them. These kids respond to you in a way I've never seen." Elena felt heat rise in her cheeks. "I just remember what it felt like to need someone to believe in me." "Is that what happened with your 4? You believed in them?" "They believed in me first," Elena corrected. "I was the broken one when they came into my life. For kids who'd been abandoned and hurt, and they still had enough love left to share it with me." The vulnerability in her voice made David's chest tighten. Without thinking, he reached out and covered her hand with his. "You're not broken, Elena. Anyone who can't see your strength isn't worth your time." Their eyes met across the desk, and something electric passed between them. The connection was immediate and undeniable. 2 people who'd been wounded by life but hadn't let it destroy their capacity for love. Elena's phone buzzed with a text from the daycare, all 4 kids asking when Mama Elena is coming. Leo learned a new word today, David. Not sure where he heard that name. Winking face. Elena's face flushed as she showed David the message. "I may have mentioned our coffee meeting this morning." "Just the coffee meeting." Their eyes met again, and Elena felt her heart race in a way it hadn't in years. "Maybe a little more than that," she admitted softly. 3 weeks into Elena's new job, life had settled into a rhythm that felt almost too good to be true. David had become a constant presence, joining them for weekend park visits, helping with bedtime stories, and somehow seamlessly integrating into the beautiful chaos of their household. Elena was folding laundry on a Thursday evening when her phone rang. Richard's name on the caller ID made her stomach clench. "Elena, I need your help." His voice was strained, desperate. "It's Melissa. She's in the hospital, complications with the pregnancy. They're talking about bed rest for the next 3 months, and Emma." He paused, his breath shaky. "Emma's scared, and I don't know how to handle this alone." Despite everything, Elena felt a stab of genuine concern. "Is the baby okay?" "For now. But Melissa's terrified, and she keeps asking for you. She said you were the only person at the baby shower who showed her real kindness." Elena closed her eyes, feeling the familiar weight of other people's crises. Richard, I don't know what you expect me to. Please. Just visit her. She doesn't have many friends here, and her family is across the country. You understand what it's like to be scared about pregnancy, about losing everything you've hoped for. The manipulation was subtle but effective. Elena found herself agreeing to visit Melissa the next day. At the hospital, Elena arrived at Melissa's room to find Richard's young wife pale and fragile against the hospital pillows. At 7 months pregnant, the bed rest order had clearly devastated her. Elena, you came. Melissa's eyes filled with tears. I wasn't sure you would after what Richard did at the shower. How are you feeling? Scared. The doctors say the baby could come early if I don't stay completely still. And Richard. Melissa's voice dropped to a whisper. He's falling apart. He keeps talking about failure and how nothing ever works out for him. I'm terrified he's going to leave. Elena sat carefully on the edge of the bed. He won't leave. Whatever his faults, Richard doesn't abandon his responsibilities. You don't understand. Melissa grabbed Elena's hand. He talks about you constantly. About how strong you were, how you handled everything when your marriage was falling apart. He says I'm nothing like you, that I don't have your backbone. The revelation was uncomfortable. Elena had thought Richard's apology at the ice cream parlor represented genuine growth, but apparently, he was still using his past marriage as a weapon against his current wife. Melissa, you are not responsible for Richard's emotional baggage. I need you to help me, Melissa interrupted, her grip tightening. These next 3 months. I need someone who understands what it's like to fight for a pregnancy that might not work out. Richard can't handle it if something goes wrong. But you could. Elena felt the familiar trap closing around her. Once again, she was being asked to be Richard's emotional support system, only this time through his pregnant wife. I have 4 children and a demanding new job, Melissa. I can't. Please. Melissa's voice broke. I know it's not fair, but I have nobody else. And you're so good with children, so strong. Richard needs someone to show him how to be brave. Elena left the hospital feeling manipulated and angry. She'd worked so hard to build boundaries, to create a life free from Richard's emotional chaos, and somehow she was being pulled back in. That evening, David arrived for dinner as planned, bringing Lily and a bottle of wine. But Elena was distracted, snapping at Marcus for spilling juice and barely listening as Sophia recounted her day at preschool. Mama, are you mad at us? Anna asked quietly. No, sweetheart. Mama's just tired. David watched Elena with growing concern. After the children were settled with a movie, he found her in the kitchen, aggressively scrubbing dishes that were already clean. What happened today? He asked gently. Elena told him about the hospital visit, about Melissa's request, about feeling trapped between her past and her present. David listened, his jaw tightening as the story unfolded. You're not seriously considering this, he said when she finished. She's scared and alone, David. I know what that feels like. She's manipulating you. And so is Richard, using his pregnant wife as a proxy to pull you back into his drama. Elena spun around, her eyes flashing. Not everything is manipulation. Sometimes people genuinely need help. Of course they do. But this isn't about helping someone in need. This is about you not being able to say no to people who've hurt you. The accusation hit like a slap. Excuse me. Elena, you have 4 children who need you, a new job that's demanding everything you have, and for the first time in years, you're building something real for yourself. Why would you jeopardize that for people who treated you like garbage? Because that's what decent people do. They help when they're needed. Even when it destroys their own peace. Even when it pulls them away from people who actually love and respect them. The implication hung in the air. David was talking about himself, about Lily, about the life they'd been carefully building together. Elena felt cornered, defensive. I haven't made any decisions yet. Haven't you? You're already making excuses for him, already finding reasons why you need to rescue his marriage. Just like you probably did for 5 years when you were married to him. The truth of it stung because Elena recognized the pattern even as she resisted acknowledging it. Maybe you don't understand because you've never been in my position, she said, her voice cold. You've never been made to feel like your worth depended on how much you could give up for someone else. David's face went very still. No, I understand perfectly. I spent 2 years after Sarah died trying to save every patient, work every extra shift, be everything to everyone because I thought that's what would make me worthy of the love I'd lost. The parallel was uncomfortable and accurate. This is different, Elena insisted. Is it? Or are you just terrified that if you don't prove how indispensable you are, people will leave you like Richard did? The words landed like physical blows. Elena felt something crack inside her chest. Get out, she said quietly. Elena. Get out. The shout brought all 4 children running from the living room, their faces scared and confused. David looked at Elena's defensive stance, at the children clustering around her like a protective barrier, and realized he'd pushed too hard, too fast. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I shouldn't have. Just go, David. Please. As the door closed behind David and Lily, Elena sank onto the couch, pulling her children close. But even as she comforted them, she couldn't shake David's words. Because deep down, she knew he was right. 3 days of silence stretched between Elena and David like a chasm. At the hospital, they maintained professional courtesy, but the easy warmth that had developed between them was gone. Elena threw herself into work and caring for her children, but the hollow ache in her chest grew stronger each day. On Saturday morning, she found herself sitting in Melissa's hospital room again, having agreed to bring Emma for a visit. The little girl played quietly in the corner while Melissa gripped Elena's hand with desperate intensity. The doctors are worried about preeclampsia now, Melissa whispered. Richard barely slept last night. He kept talking about how everything he touches falls apart. Elena watched Emma arrange toy blocks into careful patterns, her small face serious with concentration. The little girl had been shuttled between her mother's house and Richard's chaos for weeks now, and it showed in the careful way she held herself. Elena, Melissa continued, I've been thinking about what you said about boundaries, about not taking responsibility for other people's emotions. But what if the boundary hurts innocent people? The question hit Elena like a physical blow. She looked at Emma, then at Melissa's terrified face, and felt the familiar weight of other people's needs pressing down on her. What are you asking me? Richard trusts you. He listens to you in a way he doesn't listen to anyone else. If something happens to this baby, if I can't carry to term. Melissa's voice broke. He'll destroy himself. And Emma will lose her father the same way he lost his. Elena closed her eyes, feeling the trap closing around her once again. But this time, David's words echoed in her mind. You're terrified that if you don't prove how indispensable you are, people will leave you. Melissa, I can't save Richard. I couldn't save him when I was married to him, and I can't save him now. But you could try. No. The word came out firmer than Elena had intended. I could enable him. I could teach him that his emotional regulation is someone else's responsibility. But I can't save him. Elena stood up, her decision crystallizing with startling clarity. Emma, sweetheart, let's go get some lunch. As they left Melissa's room, Elena felt something she hadn't experienced in years, the lightness that came with refusing to carry weight that wasn't hers to bear. That evening, Elena sat on her porch after tucking the children into bed, her phone in her hands. David's number was pulled up on the screen, but she couldn't bring herself to press call. Pride and fear warred in her chest. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jenny Chen. David's miserable. Lily keeps asking why Dr. David doesn't come for dinner anymore. Whatever happened, fix it. Some things are too precious to lose to stubborn pride. Elena stared at the message, tears blurring her vision. Through the window, she could see her 4 children sleeping peacefully, safe and loved in the home she'd built for them. David had seen that safety, had valued it, had wanted to be part of it. And she'd thrown it away because he'd forced her to look at truths she hadn't wanted to face. Her phone rang. Richard's name appeared on the screen. Elena, thank God. Melissa's asking for you again. The doctors think they might need to deliver the baby early, and she's... Richard, stop. The firmness in her voice seemed to catch him off guard. What? I'm not coming back to the hospital. I'm not going to be your emotional support system through this pregnancy or through anything else. But Melissa needs her husband to be present and supportive instead of falling apart every time things get difficult. She doesn't need me to prop you up so you can function. The silence on the other end was deafening. You want to know how to be the kind of man who deserves a family. Elena continued. Start by taking responsibility for your own emotional responses. Stop looking for someone else to blame or someone else to fix you. Just be there for your wife and children. I don't know how. Then learn. Go to therapy. Read books. Ask for help from people whose job it actually is to help you. But stop expecting the women in your life to sacrifice their peace so you can avoid doing your own emotional work. Elena hung up before Richard could respond. Her hands were shaking, but for the first time in years, she felt truly free. She dialed David's number before she could lose her nerve. Elena. His voice was cautious but warm. You were right, she said without preamble. About all of it. I was so scared of being abandoned again that I was willing to abandon myself. And in the process, I almost abandoned something really beautiful. The silence stretched for a moment before David spoke. I shouldn't have pushed so hard. Your boundaries are yours to set. But you saw what I couldn't see. That I don't have healthy boundaries. I have walls that keep out the people who love me and doors that stay wide open for people who hurt me. Elena took a shaky breath. I told Richard no tonight. Really no. Not maybe if you push hard enough no. And it felt terrifying and wonderful at the same time. How do you feel now? Like myself for the first time in years. Elena's voice grew soft. David, I don't know how to do this. The dating thing, the trusting someone new thing. I'm probably going to mess it up spectacularly. We both are, David replied, and she could hear the smile in his voice. But maybe we can mess it up together. Elena laughed, feeling lightness bloom in her chest. The kids are asleep, but Lily's welcome for breakfast tomorrow. Fair warning, Sunday mornings are pure chaos here. Lily loves chaos. And so do I, apparently. As Elena hung up the phone, she realized that David's words had been a gift, not an attack. He'd seen her patterns clearly because he loved her enough to want better for her. For the first time in her adult life, someone had called her out not to tear her down, but to help her stand stronger. Tomorrow, she would choose love over fear, boundaries over people-pleasing, and the beautiful chaos of her real life over the destructive drama of her past. 1 year later. The autumn morning was crisp and golden as Elena stood in the kitchen of David's house, their house now, watching controlled chaos unfold around her. 5 children ranging from ages 3 to 9 moved through their breakfast routine with the practiced efficiency of a well-oiled machine. Lily, can you help Leo with his shoes? Elena called out, balancing a coffee cup while braiding Anna's hair. Got it, Mom, Lily replied without looking up from where she was patiently guiding Leo's small fingers through the laces. The word Mom still sent a warm jolt through Elena's chest. Lily had started using it 3 months ago, right around the time the adoption papers for all 4 of Elena's children had been finalized. David had insisted on adopting them too, making their blended family legally unbreakable. Daddy David, Sophia's trying to feed her cereal to the dog again, Marcus reported with the serious authority of a 7-year-old. David appeared in the doorway, his hair still damp from the shower, wearing the soft smile that had become Elena's favorite sight. Sophia, remember what we talked about? Buddy gets dog food, not people food. But he likes Lucky Charms, Sophia protested, her 4-year-old logic unassailable. I'm sure he does, but they'll make his tummy hurt. Elena watched David crouch down to Sophia's level, his patience infinite, his love unconditional. The contrast with Richard's parenting style couldn't have been more stark. Where Richard had been rigid and demanding, David was firm but gentle. Where Richard had seen children as extensions of himself, David saw them as complete individuals deserving of respect. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jenny. Reminder, hospital board meeting at 2 p.m. They're announcing your promotion to Director of Pediatric Advocacy today. So proud of you. Elena smiled. The promotion represented everything she'd worked toward, a chance to expand the program that helped hospitalized foster children, to hire more advocates, to make a real difference on a systemic level. Good news? David asked, noticing her expression. The best news. She showed him the text, and his face lit up with pride. Director Martinez, he said, trying out the title. I like the sound of that. It means longer hours sometimes, more responsibility. David cupped her face in his hands. It means you're changing the world, one child at a time. We'll make it work. We always do. The front doorbell rang, and Marcus ran to answer it with the confidence of a child who'd never known an unsafe home. It's Richard and Emma, he called out, surprising everyone. Elena and David exchanged glances. Richard's visits had become infrequent but cordial since Elena had established firm boundaries. His marriage to Melissa had survived, barely, but he'd finally started therapy after their son was born premature but healthy. Richard stood on the porch holding Emma's hand, looking older but somehow more at peace than Elena had seen him in years. Emma, now 6, immediately broke free to hug Elena's legs. "Elena. David. Can I play with Sophia and Anna?" "Of course, sweetheart. They're in the backyard." As Emma ran off to join the other children, Richard stepped forward awkwardly. "I hope it's okay that we stopped by. Emma's been asking to see everyone, and I..." He paused, running his hand through his hair. "I wanted to thank you." "Thank me? For saying no. For forcing me to figure out how to be a father and husband without leaning on you as a crutch." Richard's voice was quiet but genuine. "The therapy's helping. Melissa and we're actually talking now instead of just surviving each other." Elena felt David's supportive presence behind her. "I'm glad, Richard. Really. I also wanted to tell you that I'm selling the house, Melissa's house, I mean. We're moving closer to her family in Colorado. Fresh start and all that." Elena nodded. "That sounds healthy." Richard looked past her to where all 5 children were now playing together in the yard, Emma seamlessly integrated into the group, Leo toddling after the older kids, everyone laughing and safe. "You built something beautiful here," he said, and for the first time since their divorce, there was no bitterness in his voice. "I'm sorry it took me so long to see it." "We built something beautiful," Elena corrected gently, gesturing to include David. "That's the difference." After Richard and Emma left, Elena found herself standing in the kitchen doorway, watching David help the children with a science project involving baking soda volcanoes. The scene was perfectly ordinary and absolutely magical. "Penny for your thoughts," David said, noticing her watching. "Just thinking about how different this is from what I thought I wanted," Elena replied. "I spent so many years focused on what I couldn't have that I almost missed recognizing what I could have." David crossed to her, pulling her into his arms. "And what's that?" "Everything." Elena's voice was soft with wonder. "A partner who sees my strength instead of my flaws. Children who chose me as much as I chose them. Work that matters. A love that builds instead of tears down. Mama Elena. Daddy David. Come see our volcano." Sophia's excited voice interrupted the moment. They joined the children around the kitchen table, where 5 small faces looked up at them with excitement and trust. As they watched the baking soda erupt in foamy magnificence, Elena felt the perfect rightness of the moment. Her phone buzzed with one more text, this one from an unknown number. "Ms. Martinez, this is Sarah from Family Services. I have 4 siblings, ages 2 to 8, who need emergency placement. I know your family is already large, but given your track record, would you consider a consultation?" Elena showed the message to David, her heart already knowing the answer but needing to see it in his eyes. "Our house is getting pretty full," he said thoughtfully. "It is. The grocery bills are already astronomical." "They are. And we'd need a bigger van." "We would." David's smile broke across his face like sunrise. "Good thing I know where to get a great deal on car seats." Elena threw her arms around his neck, laughing with pure joy. Around them, their 5 children cheered as another baking soda volcano erupted, filling the kitchen with chaos and laughter and the beautiful noise of a family that had found each other against all odds. "So that's a yes?" Elena asked. "That's always been a yes with you," David replied. "From the very first day." As Elena reached for her phone to call Sarah back, she caught sight of their reflection in the kitchen window. 2 adults surrounded by children, all of them laughing, all of them whole. It wasn't the family she'd once dreamed of, but it was infinitely better. It was the family that had dreamed of her. What does your ideal family look like? Is it the traditional picture, or something beautifully unexpected like Elena and David's? Share your thoughts below. Sometimes the most beautiful love stories are the ones we never saw coming.